The isolationists were in no mood to be tinkered with. Led by the vitriolic Chicago Tribune, anti-Roosevelt cartoons and editorials accused FDR of maneuvering us into war. After all, he wanted to amend the Neutrality Act, which forbade our taking sides. Congressman Hamilton Fish of New York led the opposition.
I was a non-interventionist. I was opposed to foreign wars, the same as probably 90% of the American people. Practically all Americans were very much opposed to going into war unless attacked.
Another war, not for me. This time America should keep out, and I know I will. If war breaks out in Europe, I think that this country should heed the advice of its first president and avoid all foreign entanglements.
I haven't the slightest idea of European affairs.
There was general confusion in the public mind. The war in Europe, was it coming? It looked imminent. We were fearful of it. In the summer of 1939, the United States was grossly unprepared.
We certainly were. Artillery pieces were still drawn by horses in the summer of '39. Tanks looked like bathtub toys. They and our planes and those artillery pieces, most of that equipment was left over from World War I. We had won that war to make the world safe for democracy. Now the world was in a mess again.
Some of the senators, able senators, said that we don't even want the government of the United States to have the right to declare who's the aggressor.
I didn't ever want us to get mixed up in their perpetual wars. That's why they came over here, our people, to escape from those wars. I didn't want to bring them back into wars, but I wanted to promote peace there.
So we settled for thumbing our noses at the bad guys, just like Mickey and Judy at the picture show.
We've got no Duce, we've got no Fuhrer, but we've got Garbo and Norma Shearer.
Got no Goose-Step,
but we've got a Susie Q-Step here in our country.
we send our greetings to friendly nations.
We may be Yanks, but we're your relations.
Drop your sabers, we're all your hero neighbors here in God.
People who opposed America going to war did so for different reasons. What follows is part of a letter to the editor published in the Chicago Tribune on August 30th, 1939. We are the disillusioned young men who feel pretty cold about dying for the political avarice of old men. These are our good days, full of the pleasures of work and love. We will recognize the time when there is a real cause to fight. We are calmly aware that this is not the time. The letter is signed, Disillusioned. Come back to the summer of 1939. You'll be just in time for the war.
Our World will be right back, worlds apart, in the summer of '39.
Welcome back to the summer of 1939. Most records are sold to be played on jukeboxes, not at home. Here in America, there are no war songs on the jukebox, not yet. Most of the hits are songs you can dance to, except for one. It will be sung on the radio for the first time this summer, and it will become a kind of second national anthem, not unlike The Woman Who Sings It. Earlier in the summer at the White House, President Roosevelt presented her to the British King and Queen with these words: "Your Majesties, this is Kate Smith. This is America."
And now we take great pleasure in presenting to you the star of our program, Miss Kate Smith.
Hello, everybody. It is my happy privilege to introduce a new song, God Bless America. While the storm clouds gather far across the sea, let us swear allegiance to a land that's free.
We interrupt this broadcast to bring you a special news bulletin. Moscow, Germany, and Russia today signed a non-aggression pact. They have agreed that neither country would declare war against one another and that neither one would come to the aid of a third party in case either nation was attacked.
I knew it was a bad deal for the Russians. And furthermore, I knew that it would give Hitler a freer range of power.
Without the Soviets to worry about, Hitler could now feed upon Poland. When his foreign minister von Ribbentrop met in Moscow with Soviet foreign minister Molotov to sign the non-aggression pact, Poland was as good as gone.
I knew it portended evil for the future.
Hitler coveted Danzig in the Polish corridor between East Prussia and the rest of Germany. Still 90% German, it had been made a free port after World War I. Hitler promised the Reichstag he would get Danzig back by force if necessary. Poland said no and began to mobilize, calling up the reserves. With the hungry Nazis on one side and a passive Soviet Union on the other, Poland was doomed. But Jan Karski, a Polish army officer, did not think there would be a war.
I am sure most of the people in Poland, we were very optimistic. First, we didn't believe that Hitler would dare to attack Poland, having certainty of two fronts, from the east and from the west.
In London, the British began to dig ditches, to build bomb shelters. After all, Britain had pledged to defend Poland if Germany invaded it. War, therefore, seemed inevitable. They began to send the children out of London again, and with the bitter memories still fresh from the last war, they fitted the children with gas masks. Meanwhile, in Paris, a reluctant French army was mobilized against the same old enemy. France was confident in its Maginot Line, a dated system of barriers the French somehow believed was still impregnable, or even relevant. It wasn't, but France, too, had promised to defend Poland. On the morning of September 1st, 1939, Adolf Hitler invaded Poland. The Blitzkrieg was begun. A monster was on the move. Crack panzer divisions, overwhelming air power, and a German force of 1,700,000. Poland was brutalized. Poland's army was crushed. The skies above Poland reigned what Hemingway called mechanized doom. Hitler's lightning war included bombing civilians. This was meant to terrorize people, and it did. But Radio Warsaw continued to broadcast a Chopin Polonaise, as if to say, the spirit of Poland was not so easily destroyed, even if most everything else was. The Polish army belonged in another century. It fought bravely, but horses and cannons and sabers against tanks and bombers made no sense.
What I saw was not a war. It was a confusion, chaos, despair, no possibility to carry our cannons. Stupid horses afraid of the bombs. We were not afraid, but horses were afraid. Altogether, it was pathetic. We never expected that we would have to face powerful Nazi war machine alone.
It was a massacre, the dead impossible to count. And yet the strains of Chopin coming from the radio often seemed to give the scenes of carnage an almost spiritual quality. Something was dead, and something was not dead. But it was clear Hitler had no intention of negotiating with Poland. Within 3 weeks, Chopin would give way to Deutschland über alles, Germany over all. Poland was the beginning.
My world collapsed in 2, 3, 4 days. And it never was the same.